Welcome or welcome back. This is what I've read so far this year, part 3. There are 10 books this time. Stick around to the end to find out which was the best book of the month. The first book we'll talk about is Brandon Sanderson's The Well of Ascension. This was the second book in the Mistborn trilogy, the first one, and it had a rough start. I'm glad I read the author's note that said this was his very first sequel. Like, he'd written several other books, like 14 or so, before writing this one, but this was his first sequel, and I think had I not found that out before reading the book, it would have made the experience a little harder. But overall, I thought this was a really good book. I enjoyed how it continued the story and also increased our knowledge of the world. This was good, and it set up a really good mystery that, you know, comes through in the third book. So nice. Next book we'll talk about is Garth Nix's Sabriel. This is the first of his Old Kingdom series, and this is a young adult fantasy book. This follows Sabriel as she graduates high school and enters the Old Kingdom, which is the magical world, and she is looking for her father, who she believes has gone missing. So one of my favorite parts about this is Sabriel has trained her whole life. She knows what she's doing. She is not coming into magic with zero experience or knowledge and somehow excelling. No, she has worked hard. She does know what she's doing, and that is why she's excelling. Another thing I like about this world is the world building just unfolds as you go through the world rather than having a lot of info dumping. I felt like this one was handled very well, very gracefully, and I will definitely read the rest of the series. Next up is the first nonfiction on this list, and possibly of the year. So this is Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It by Kamal Ravikant. I may be butchering that name. I apologize. This was about choosing to love yourself. It really could have been a 15-minute TED Talk. It did not need to be as long as it was. Certainly did not need to be a book size at all. It's not bad, but a TED Talk would be more than sufficient. Maybe it is a TED Talk. Oh, I don't know that I've looked that up. I don't care. So, you know, if you want a reminder to be kind to yourself, sure. Otherwise, skip it. Or find out if it's a TED Talk. Okay, for another lackluster nonfiction pick is How to Stay Human in an Effed Up World by Tim Desmond. This was so forgettable. I think the most I got out of this is that he and his wife went to a non-religious monastery at some point, and also he's a huge fan of Thich Nhat Hanh, which, you know, great. Who's not? But yeah, otherwise very forgettable. Something that's not forgettable? Spy Family by Tatsuya Endo. Let me double check that I have that name right. Yes, I did. So I read the first volume in March. This was so much fun. Okay, I don't want to rehash this because I'm sure a lot of people have been talking about this. It is a ton of fun. So our main character is a spy, and he has a mission to infiltrate a school to get to a high-level person who's on the enemy side of things, and in order to do that, he needs a family. So he goes and he adopts a daughter. He does not know that she is a telepath, so that's fun. She thinks it is so cool that he's a spy. She loves it. She's down for it. She wants to do her absolute best to make sure that she stays adopted and makes him happy, and he succeeds with his mission of saving the world. He also needs a wife, so, and this part is definitely contrived, but he ends up meeting a woman, marries her. She is an assassin, which he also does not know, but the daughter does. The daughter knows. She knows that her parents are a spy and an assassin. She is having a really good time. And I had a good time. I loved this. I am so excited to keep reading this series. To continue with the adoption theme, let's talk about A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandanna. So this was really sweet, very charming, and a lot of fun. Found family at its finest, and it was a hug of a book. So this follows a young woman. She is a witch, and she has essentially a YouTube channel making potions and stuff, but is making it seem like, okay, maybe it's not real, because who believes in witches? Well, other witches do. So she gets a contract to be a live-in tutor for 3 young witches who were adopted by, let's say, an archaeologist, because I can't remember if that was exactly what she was. Close enough. Anyway, at this house, though, there are a variety of other caretakers who have been, you know, raising and loving these children, and they're very protective, but they're also excited to bring in someone new who can help the girls with their magic. This was fun. Definitely recommend. There is a romance, because why not? Romance is nice, and please read. Next up on the list is Small Admissions by Amy Poeppel. This is a contemporary fiction, and it has a few different POV characters, very different voices. Honestly, I think this would translate really well to a play or possibly even a movie, but I really can see it as a play. One of the kind of main characters slash everyone seems to revolve around her a little bit is, maybe her name is Kate? I don't remember names, but she dropped out of her grad school program. She's a very intelligent woman. Something went wrong in her personal life, and other people are taking responsibility for it. I think at the end of the day, what this book is saying is you can have friends. You don't need to take responsibility for their issues. Let them take responsibility for themselves. And then also you can have friends who do not want to be friends with each other. That's also okay. But this was fun. I did really like it. I laughed out loud so many times, and I thought that the main character that everything seems to kind of revolve around, some of what she goes through felt so relatable to what goes on inside my head sometimes that I don't see that very often. Let's put it that way. Definitely recommend this one. It's hard to talk about, because I mean, there's the plot, but then there's a lot that's going on inside it. It's really just, you love the characters. Or maybe you don't love them, but you really want to know what's going on with them. Okay, so back to fantasy. We have Empire Sand by Tasha Suri. This was beautiful to read. Just the descriptions of movement and landscapes. It was very pretty. It was very pretty to read. And I really liked the story too. So our main character is kind of mixed cultures. Her mom is from the desert, and the desert people are kind of looked down on by the city people. But the desert people also have magic. The city people, her father is a local leader, which affords her a lot of privilege despite being mixed culture, and she's also just very protected. She has no idea how rough it can be to be someone of her heritage without her privilege. So one day she makes a mistake and she draws the attention of the religious leader of her father's people. And the religious leader, in order to obtain her, the religious leader wants the magic of her mother's people. So the religious leader engages her to one of his, I guess, followers, who happens to also be of desert heritage. So it was really interesting how they developed a friendship and just how that went. It was very good. So this next title, I almost hesitate to call it a book because it's so short, but it's Neil Gaiman's Art Matters. It's a collection of 3 essays, if I remember correctly. Neil Gaiman's essays are some of my favorite things to read. He also had a title that I read earlier called View from the Cheap Seats, and I highly recommend that. Just read anything by Neil Gaiman, particularly his essays. He has a wonderful mind and a beautiful perspective. All right, we've made it to the end. This is the last book and the best book of the month, Educated by Tara Westover. This is her memoir of her childhood through graduating college. She was raised in a Mormon household, like a very traditional Mormon, but also a very abusive household. And it was so heartbreaking to read some of what she went through. And also just the struggle she had, even as an adult, making that transition from adolescence into adulthood and coming to terms with the idea of maybe she shouldn't be in the bosom of her family. Maybe she should break out of it and not return to it, because it is very dangerous for her there. But I mean, this was inspiring, and I think the biggest message, the biggest takeaway that I get from it is just how important an education is, how critical it is to teach our children, to teach our adults, for everyone to have discussions on how we treat others, and then also like what our experiences are. I think it's so important to not dismiss what other people experience just because it's different from what you experience. And if nothing else, I think this book highlights that it's important to be open-minded and compassionate and always seek to educate yourself. Those are the 10 books I read in March 2023. Mostly good titles. There were only a couple that I didn't care for. Everything else was pretty great. So see you soon for April. Bye.